trillion. Yes, you heard me right. $1.5 trillion, and that to US. I have got your attention, haven't I? Approximately 2% of the global gross domestic product, grossly the size of the entire Canadian economy. This is the global cost of violence against women, estimated by none other than United Nations in the year 2016. So I guess I can safely say that domestic violence is not just a woman's issue. It is definitely not a private affair which the society finds easy to ignore, thinking why get involved as it doesn't impact us. Well, now all of us know we are paying for it in hard cash. You know who else will agree with me that it is not a woman's issue? It is neither a man versus woman's issue. It is an issue which impacts the society as a whole. It is a world problem of epic proportions. Sir Patrick Stewart will agree with me, famously known as the captain of the starship USS Enterprise of Star Trek. He says, and I quote, "As a child, I witnessed his repeated violence against my mother, and the terror and misery he caused was such that if I felt I could have succeeded, I would have killed him. If my mother had attempted it, I would have held him down." Do you know who he's talking about? He is talking about his own father. No 7-year-old boy or girl should go through something so traumatic. Millions of women, countless men and kids live in fear. Fear that starts somewhere from your gut and spreads all over. Fear that makes you almost numb, and that numbness in a way is a welcome escape from the horrible reality of life. And how I know? I know because I'm a survivor too. You see, the tragedy is not that this is happening in some prison camp under an evil dictator. The tragedy is that it is happening all over the world in what is supposed to be the safest place, our homes. Domestic violence touches more lives than we care to admit. According to WHO, 1 in 3, 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence in their lifetime. By these estimates, there is a very high probability that right now there are people listening to me who are victims of domestic violence, both women and men. Right now there are people here who know of someone who has been a victim or is a victim. And if I may say so, also listening to me are those who themselves are abusers. In 2008, a 9-year-old boy called 911, terrified and crying. A 911 operator asked his name and the problem. "This man is trying to kill my mommy," a small, terrified voice replied. "Does he have any weapons?" "Yes, he has a knife," the boy said, and then he shouted away from the receiver, "Please don't kill her." Ellen Curtis, the young boy's mother, was stabbed with a kitchen knife 27 times by her then husband in front of this little boy and his 2-year-old baby brother. She survived. This young boy and his 2-year-old baby brother have had extensive therapy since then. A childhood lost to domestic violence. You know what is heartbreaking? It is heartbreaking that this is not a unique story. As many as 275 million children worldwide are exposed to violence in the home. A global study done by more than 125,000 people from all socio-economic backgrounds found children who witnessed domestic violence had the same risk and incidence of post-traumatic stress disorder as soldiers returning from the war. What is this world we are living in? According to a report by UNICEF, studies from various countries support the finding that rates of abuse are higher among women whose husbands were abused as children or who saw their mothers being abused. We have to break this cycle of violence because it will impact us, our future generations. There is another type of violence which takes place along with domestic violence. Almost every victim experiences or the classic, it takes two to tango. Why didn't you leave sooner? Get some self-respect, babe. Anyone who asks these questions is subconsciously agreeing that there are situations where such behavior is no justification for violence, period. And stop judging. Even if you do not want to help a victim of domestic violence, do not add to their pain by victim bashing them. They have enough pain and enough scars to last their lifetime. Understand this. Violence not only damages physically, it has a deep psychological impact too. Okay, I'll share something personal. Just writing and recording this talk a few minutes took me more than 10 days. I cried while writing it. I cried for myself, my lost years, loss of dreams. I had pain, real physical pain in my tummy while doing this because talking about it brings back memories. You see, I feel bruised inside, just this one talk. This is the damage domestic violence does to a person. So please don't judge. I had come across a post on Facebook by a girl's family who sadly had jumped to her death to escape domestic violence. In that post, the girl's family had shared how their daughter was tortured by her husband and the in-laws, how she had reached out to them for help, and how to change her mood they had taken her for holidays abroad. You know what I wanted to ask them? I wanted to ask them why as parents did they send her back? Why when their daughter was continuously reaching out for help they did not help her? They had the money to take her on holidays abroad, but not enough love and courage to bring her back to safety of their home. Like someone said, a divorced daughter is better than a dead one. We hide behind excuses like what will society say? Well, no matter what the society says, these people are never getting their daughter back. People worry about the so-called shame if they bring their daughters back. There is no shame in bringing your loved ones back to safety. The real shame is not having the moral courage to do so. The shame is in ignoring the signs which a little boy or a girl may show because they come from a violent home. This little boy will grow into a man with deep pain within him. You see, pain has no gender. I am a big Pink Floyd fan, and Comfortably Numb is one of my favorite songs. And the way it ends is, the child is grown, the dream is gone. I have become comfortably numb. Please, please don't let a child lose his or her dream. We as a society cannot afford to be comfortably numb. All of us have the power to help. Whenever we turn a blind eye to any abuse taking place, then we are in effect supporting and enabling the abuser. If you have a son, a daughter, a relative, a friend, a colleague who's facing domestic violence, please speak out, support them, help them to safety. Your support could save a life. This violence is protected by silence, our silence. So let's break this conspiracy of silence. I'm talking here because I broke the silence. I'm here because my parents, my sister, my brother are rock solid behind me. I have restarted my life because so many people, some perfect strangers have helped me, stood by me, gave me strength when I had none left. I can sleep at night without worrying about my life. And I want to end this with a message to all the victims. I understand how confusing, terrifying it is. I know what it is to feel shame, humiliation, the doubts very skillfully put in your mind by your abuser that you are responsible for their bad behavior. I know the fear which stops you from leaving, telling the cops, reaching out for help. I have been there. I know it is not easy to recreate your life, but let me tell you, it is totally worth it. Let me assure you that you are more powerful than you think you are. What has happened has happened. What matters is this moment now. Accept this moment, forgive the past, and move forward to create a new present and future. There is only one person who can actually change your life, and that person is you. Take ownership of your life. You will move from a place of weakness to a position of strength. Give yourself a voice. Speak up. You owe it to yourself. I want you to repeat these lines with me. Just put your name in place of mine, alright? Ready? Let's do it. I am Ruchi Singh, a powerful human being. I'm powerful because I broke into pieces and I have picked up those pieces to create something beautiful. I'm powerful because I understand that being vulnerable is not being weak. I am powerful because I know fear, but carry on through the fear. I'm powerful because I live through my nightmares so that I can fulfill my dreams. I am powerful because I can still find goodness in people. My pain does not define me. What I do with that pain defines me. I am powerful because I choose love when hate would have been easier. The world will treat you the way you treat yourself. So respect yourself, love yourself, value yourself, empower yourself. Life may knock us down, but we will rise again and again and again. When life challenges me, I say, challenge accepted, game on. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Driver, post domestic abuse. He would say little things, hurtful comments. Often he'd pass them off as a joke, but they were designed to control me. They were designed to hurt me. They ended making my heart a bloody, pulpy mess, because it was death by 1,000 cuts. My ex-husband was a passive-aggressive man, deeply angry, never dealing with his anger, never resolving his anger. But anger, even when it's unexpressed, oozes out the pores, because unexpressed anger is still anger. The past shapes us, and my past as a survivor, a victim of domestic abuse, of emotional abuse, where I had no broken bones, no scars, no bruises, where no one could see what was happening, not even me. That past has shaped me in many and different ways. And I want to share some of my experiences and the things that I've learnt, because we become different people, new people, because of what has happened to us in the past. One Christmas, my ex-husband and I, with our family, had gathered in Sydney, Australia, for a family gathering. The following year, I was going to take up a new role, one I was very excited about, of being school principal at a small school in which I had been teaching. I previously let the school board know that if an opportunity to be principal arose, that I would love to have the role. And then when the situation became vacant, they asked me and I said yes. However, I overheard my ex-husband tell his family, Oh, Bron's going to be principal next year, but it's only by default. There really was no one else. Now, even if I was the only option for school principal, why would you say that? I was hurt. I felt as though my husband wasn't proud of me. I didn't feel as though he was on my side or on my team. He wasn't in my cheer squad. Those words cut like a knife to my heart. The past does shape us, and particularly when you're in an abusive situation, as I was, because passive-aggressive people can be very emotionally withdrawn, and they can use withdrawal and neglect as a means to control. When I had left the marriage, and that was a huge thing to do, my ex and I were still in discussions. I was hoping that perhaps we could salvage 28 years of marriage. And he told me something for the very first time. When we were engaged, he had shared something quite personal with me, and it upset me. I got teary. That was not what he expected. And in that moment, he made a vow that he was never going to share anything personal with me again. Now, of course, he didn't tell me that vow had been made before we got married. I was finding this out 30 years later. But that was his mindset going into our relationship, that he was never going to open himself up to me. He was never going to be emotionally available to me. He was never going to share anything personal. And I could see that happening. Even though I didn't know about the vow, there were times when I'd have to have those difficult conversations, as we all do in long-term relationships. And I could see the walls go up, the shutters come down, and his eyes go blank as he disengaged from whatever it was that I was going to say. Now, looking back, I know that this was a defence mechanism for him. But what it meant was that he separated himself from me. He was never emotionally available to me. There was no true intimacy in our marriage. And I got to the end of 28 years of marriage feeling that I didn't know my ex-husband at all. What else happened, how it shaped me, was that I became quite needy of other people's approval and attention. But on the flip side, I also became quite self-sufficient because I had to be. Because the past does shape us. And sometimes it's as much by what you don't get as by what you do get. It's often by the things that happen and the things that don't happen. Passive-aggressive people are very good at saying yes, 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 when what they really mean is no, no, no. Where they acquiesce to something, but then find a way to hijack that situation, sabotage the event, get out of whatever they've agreed to. A classic example for me, which I remember so clearly, is being invited as a couple to attend a romantic movie night at our friend's place. About 6 couples had gathered and we were all settled in to watch Serendipity. About 20 minutes into the movie, my husband, who had smoked for much of our marriage, just turned to me and said, "I'm going out for a smoke." But he never returned. And I was left sitting on the lounge, surrounded by other couples, on my own, watching a romantic movie. You can imagine how alone I felt, bereft and alone. And aloneness was something I felt for much of my marriage, because my passive-aggressive ex-husband did not want to be really involved in our life together. It was some years later, after I'd left the marriage, which was a huge step, I had gone through some counselling and I found a newspaper clipping of my ex and I with some other couples at a master builders dinner. The word that came to me was sharp. I took the clipping with me to my next counselling session, and as the counsellor encouraged me to unpack what sharp and this picture might have in common, she suggested I write or draw something. Now, what I immediately drew was a sharp knife dripping with blood. And then came the ugly cry. You know that one? Snotty, dribbly, mouth open, gut-wrenching cry. Because each time my husband emotionally withdrew from me, each time he said something hurtful, each time he humiliated me, it was like a knife to my heart until my heart became a bloody pulpy mess. So yes, the past shapes us, but in many ways I can be thankful for the past that I have had and the things that I've experienced, although they were not good in themselves. Because I am now the woman I am, because my ex-husband is who he is. And I actually like who I am. So for that reason, I'm thankful for the shaping that the past has done. But the past does not define us, because we can move bravely into the future. And one of the bravest things I've ever done is to sit across the table from my ex-husband and tell him I was leaving. And then when he said no, to grip my hands together in my lap and say yes. Because you see, as a conservative Christian, separation and divorce were like an unforgivable sin. And here was I, a leader in my church, instigating separation and eventually instigating divorce. But I did it. And then a few years later, I read this quote by Brené Brown that says, owning our story and loving ourselves through the process is one of the most courageous things that we will ever do. Now, I knew I was divorced, but I hadn't owned it. I still saw it as this unforgivable sin and was trying to push it away. But these words encouraged me to own this part of my story, to own this story of mine. And once I owned it, like a gift to myself, all the guilt and shame that I experienced, that I was feeling in myself around my divorce, just simply flew away. And so it shapes us. We change and grow, but it doesn't define us. We get to write a new story, a story that is authentic with who we are. Authentic not only with the person we were designed to be, the person we were born to be, but authentic with the person that we've become, because the past is what it is. So, yes, your past has shaped you, but it doesn't need to define you. Own your story, whatever it is, own it, it's yours. And then go, write a new story. Show the world who you are.